Hey, I'm John, also known as Lark, for my Polish last name, Larkowski. It's my fine associate here.
Sandro Turriete.
And we work for a local business called HashRocket. We develop Ruby on Rails boutique web applications, and we're on Jacksonville Beach. We're going to cover the first part of the talk is going to be Ruby on Rails, the technology, the web framework. The next part of the talk is going to be how we do things at our company, HashRocket, what sorts of development practices we use to actually write code. Then we'll do a little Q&A. Who are we? I'm Lark. I'm a Wisconsin lad. I started back in the day on Apple IIs. I've been an Apple II and Mac guy my whole life. Assembly language and BASIC, and I did C in high school. I did some Java in college, and then I was going to graduate with an electrical engineering degree, and I decided that that wasn't for me, so I taught myself ASP and VB and started doing web stuff. This was back in '99, and never looked back. I transitioned to the C#.NET thing a few years ago, but then I started learning about Ruby on Rails on the side, and I loved it so much that I couldn't develop in .NET anymore, so I quit my job, moved in my parents' basement, and waited for someone to hire me. And so two of my interests, I love speed metal, I love music, I play guitar, I'm really into ping pong. A lot of us at HashRocket play ping pong. We have a table at our offices. And again, I have an electrical engineering degree that I never used, and I have a computer science degree from UW-Madison.
Sandro, the rot. Sandro T, they call me Sandrot. Yeah, I used to go to school here, but in the end it wasn't making me happy, so I left and I joined HashRocket. Now I program Ruby on Rails for a living.
And why wasn't it making you happy? Some people here might want to know.
Well, I don't know. I grew up on dynamic languages. My first language was Python, and moving from that to C, to Java, to C#, it just, I don't know, it's really hard to go from a dynamic language to a statically typed, compiled language. It never made sense to me. I never needed the speed. I needed the readability. I needed the ability to make programs quickly. So those are the things driving me away from school. I'd do the school thing, I'd go home, and then I'd hack on Ruby and Python and web stuff. Right, so I used to do Python, I used to do PHP. When I got interested more in web development, I realized I had to use frameworks. So I moved back to Python and I started messing with the Django framework. But eventually I went down the path of Ruby on Rails, and I've learned to love it. It was a steep learning curve to get into it, but I can't imagine doing anything else right now. Thrasher, I'm not a Thrasher, but I bought
that means skateboard, by the way.
I bought a skateboard the other couple weeks ago, and it's good for the 7-block commute into work.
Yeah, like I said, we're on the beach. We actually all live pretty close to our offices, so yeah, I got a skateboard too, and I can almost ride it. Talk a little bit about our company, HashRocket. Actually, we're not a drug cartel who deals drugs to nerds in space. HashRocket is actually named after a programming symbol. You have the construct of the hash, and that's like A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Well, in Ruby, the way that you connect the key to the value is with this symbol called the HashRocket. It's an equal sign and a greater than sign, and it's very distinctive to Ruby. So we sort of co-opted that symbol and made it our logo. Because if you think about it, that's really good branding. People type that symbol hundreds of times a day in their code. So that's the etymology of our company, and you can read that. That's marketing speak. But what we're about is we're a boutique consultancy. We build the highest quality software we can for a very special type of client. Like, we don't just take any programming gig. It's got to be the right fit. We do more like Web 2.0 startup kind of stuff, and we're happiest with a client who's looking for an Amish chair, like an heirloom, versus a client who wants to buy a chair from IKEA. If you catch the analogy, you know, we build for the long term. Anything else for me? No. Let's get into it. These are just a few slides of us actually working. You want to talk about what we see?
Sure. I mean, we actually don't use this setup too much, but just because it's obnoxious. But we've got two 30-inch screens there and two guys sitting sitting and doing some pair programming. It's not even mirrored. I don't know. It's not a great example, but
Let's do the next one.
sure. This is more our style. This was taken in our new office. So our new office, all the rooms there, all the war rooms are glass. There's lots of transparency going on, and yeah, two pairs to a table, one big screen, and then laptops off to the side for little bits of research that go on during the day.
And you'll notice that every developer often brings in their own laptop, and they have those adjacent. So if they need to break off from their pairing, they can do research or go spike something. And also, it's two keyboards driving the same screen, so there's not this notion of contention, like, give me the keyboard, no, you give me the keyboard. You can complete each other's sentences, and we often do that. This is an example of one of our morning stand-up meetings.
Every morning we get together and we stand up and we just have a quick chat. As you can see, we're a pretty big group now. Yeah, this is taken in our new office.
Stand-up is a concept that comes from agile methodologies, extreme programming. It's the idea of you just got to touch base a little bit every day, and you stand up because you want it to go quick.
Okay.
And there's Sandro and me actually working. So let's get back to the actual work of this talk.
Ruby on Rails, we're gonna talk about it. Web development that doesn't hurt. It really is the easiest way of doing web development, and moving forward, it's really the most maintainable way. Ruby, of course, is the language, the dynamic language, and Rails is the framework.
Ruby really enables Rails to be an elegant implementation. The fact that in Ruby you can open it up and override anything. You can shoot yourself and your whole team in the foot with it, or you can do very powerful things with it. And I don't know if there would have been something as elegant as Rails without Ruby.
Rails is always touted as opinionated software, and one of the main opinions is that they ship with a model view controller architecture and an MVC architecture. So we'll be getting into that as we move on.
The other great thing about Rails is it has the kitchen sink. It has a ton of helpers for the things that you typically do in web development. Rails is all about taking the 80% case and standardizing it. So you only have to focus on what makes your app different from every other web app. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you do it or reinvent the kitchen sink. You got it all, and if it doesn't come built into Rails, there's often a plugin that'll handle it. For example, authentication. There's about 5 different ways to do it, 5 different plugins you could grab to do it. Testing frameworks are provided, so you don't have to reinvent any wheels.
And driving that 80% rule, I mean, convention over configuration. For the most part, Rails assumes your web app is going to do these types of things. So if I create a model, which is called a user model, I know where every other part of my system is. I know that my controller is a user's controller. I know that all my views that have to do with a user are in a views/users directory.
And it dictates like your table database name, database table name. So if you have a user's class, you're going to expect a user's table in your database by default. You can always override it, but the point is, why would you want to worry about that? That's commodity stuff. Let's worry about the higher level stuff.